there's Pete. Hey, Pete, how are you? Good to see you. I was saying I care more about your wife than the other one, Jessica Simpson. I've always had a thing for your wife. I don't know why. I don't know how to explain it. I like her music. I like her look.
Excellent. Me as well.
I like her better.
Me too.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm up early for me, but I'm doing good. I'm stoked to be on the show.
I see you all the time in all the tabloid magazines, almost like you don't have a free moment. I mean, they're constantly photographing you.
Do they live with you?
It's a little bit weird, you know. I mean, you get followed around and you want to goof around, you know, and make fun of it, and then, you know, you just want the dudes to go away. But at some point, it becomes dangerous and weird and annoying, you know. Do you and your wife consciously, when you go out of the house, say, listen, we better get dressed like a certain way because we're probably going to be photographed? No, but we do. We'll take like an hour way out of the way to kind of like a diversion tactic to get out of the way and try to not be filmed. You know.
So where do you live that they're always around?
They live in L.A.
Yeah, we live in L.A. There's so many photographers there.
Really?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, we live on a private street and they just come up the street anyway. They pose as pizza guys. They pose as whatever.
Why do you think they're so fascinated with you and your wife? It's almost like, were they that fascinated with you before you got with your wife, or is it just like the coupling of you two?
I think that I'm kind of like a purse for my wife, and so you know, like
an accessory. Yeah,
I'm an alright accessory to have there, you know, whatever. And I mean, I'm sure they're more fascinated with my wife. I'm more fascinated with my wife.
You're fascinating in a sense that, like, I was reading about you, and I mean, your childhood was, first of all, when did you start playing the bass?
Probably when I was like 15 or 16, something like that.
Did you always play the bass, or you just play guitar?
I played guitar at first, but then I realized I wanted something with 2 less strings, and I played piano growing up. So you were always into music? Yeah. Definitely. But you were like a major fucked up kid in terms of like always on psychotropic drugs, right? I was diagnosed with ADD, and then on top of that, I kind of was one of those
bipolar or something?
Yeah, I was one of those guys who just couldn't figure myself out, you know.
Were you institutionalized?
No, I went to this boot camp for a while, which wasn't a whole lot of fun in Wolfboro, New Hampshire.
Your parents put you in boot camp?
I was recommended to go there by a therapist, and it was pretty much hell on earth. It was the worst thing. I was a goofy kid who was kind of weird, but I was there with these kids that were like, you know, like serious illness. Yeah, like Michael Myers from Halloween.
Right.
You know.
When you're sent to boot camp, it means your parents were not able to control you, and they felt that you were maybe a mess for life kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and they thought that it would get me on schedule and kind of like, you know, get me figured out, and all it did was make me angrier at them. You know? Yeah, I mean, also, it's kind of like, well, they don't get you, so they're going to send you away to boot camp to change you. It's almost like your parents don't like you, so they're going to change you. Totally. And the cool thing is, though, now that, like, me and my parents, like, you know, especially, I mean, like, the elephant in the room, you know, I just had a child. It's like, I realize how cool my dad was and how, you know, it's a different life being a parent.
So it was you. You were the problem.
Yeah, so you were a problem.
I probably was a problem. I honestly, like.
But I mean, if you were diagnosed bipolar and all that stuff, I mean, you have serious mental illness, right?
I think that I have a strange brain chemistry, and I think that a lot of times when I would, you know, I think we are the pill generation, so we are so prescribed, like heavily prescribed, and then I would kind of play drugstore cowboy, where I would just go like, well, I'm going to dabble with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's when it gets all wacky when you decide to do it yourself.
Were you hallucinating? Were you having breaks with reality that they put you on medication?
Nah, it was mostly anxiety, like really hardcore anxiety, you know.
The other kids in school, you didn't fit in and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was a little bit of a weird guy. I got picked on a little bit, but, you know.
Why, because your hair was different?
Yeah.
You were sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I gotten past it. They come to our shows now, you know, and I tell them, like, don't pick on these kids because they might be on stage next time you see them.
That's right. But then I read something really disturbing about you. At one point in your life, I don't know if this was when you were famous or when you were just coming up and trying to figure out who you were, you played Russian roulette with a gun. And you could have killed yourself that night.
Yeah, I think so. And it was probably one of the stupidest things that I've ever done in my entire life.
You were with a friend in a room.
Yeah, and we were...
were you high?
We were on Ambien, which is the strangest
thing to be on
and to be awake ever. You do the dumbest things on the planet.
It's almost impossible to stay awake on Ambien.
And I hear the new thing is to take Ambien and then drink Red Bull. That's what I just read on Rolling Stone's hot list.
So that you'll stay awake on the Ambien.
Yeah, because you go nuts. It is like bonkers, the kind of stuff you do, you know, whatever. Right. But that was the stupidest thing I ever did, you know, and then...
so if you're sitting in the room with this kid, just one other kid, right?
One other kid, yeah.
You had the gun or he had a gun?
He had a gun.
He had a gun. He said, hey, man, this is cool. We'll put one bullet in the chamber.
Yeah.
We'll spin it, and then you take one shot at your own head.
It was like one of those things like, let's check this off the list of things to do in your life. Wow. You know, but the problem is, at one point you could check that off, and that's the last thing you check off the list.
Where do you put the gun? Next to your temple?
Yeah, and I actually have a friend whose cousin survived it, who played Russian roulette and survived it.
He got shot in the head.
And is a vegetable now. Like
wow.
Oh, my God.
You know, I mean, it's just terrible. It's stupid. It's
Why do you think you did it? You don't even know, right?
No, I was a goofy guy, and I was on Ambien, and I just made a strange decision. I was hanging out with bad people, and it was just stupid, man. It's like, I don't want to sit here and sensationalize it.
No, I don't think you are. How old were you when you did that?
I was probably about, like, 24, 23.
Oh, wow. Like that, so you were already in Fall Out Boy,
yeah.
And you were already hanging out and being a musician?
Yeah, and I was hanging out with just a bad crowd, running around doing stupid stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what happened? Then he went, and did you go first?
I went first, he went second. We were both good, and, you know,
wow.
I don't know. He loaded it. I don't even know anything about guns.
Maybe it wasn't even loaded,
you know, whatever, you know. But regardless, I mean...
You think you have a death wish?
No. At the time, do I think that I would have cared? I wouldn't have thought about what my family and anyone else would have thought of at the time afterwards. But now, definitely not. And
I mean, now you're having a great life. You're in love, and you got a kid.
Yeah, life couldn't be better. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I think there's something to be said for fate, because I wouldn't have this child, and I wouldn't have this love in my life if it wasn't meant to be. So
I just got to understand something. When you pull the trigger, though, do you piss your pants? I mean, this is it. It could be lights out forever. Do you...
It's
like... What goes through your head?
It's like standing on the... Well, because you're on Ambien, so it's like a cartoon. But but at the same time, it's like the minute before you bungee jump or walk out on stage in front of 10,000 people or whatever, you know?
Yay. I can't even imagine doing that.
And you're afraid of getting on a plane.
Yeah, well, imagine me being afraid of getting on a plane.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess after you do something like that, though, you're not afraid of getting on a plane.
I couldn't fly on planes for 2 years. When Fall Out Boy broke, I couldn't fly on planes. I drove everywhere.
Isn't that weird? You're willing to put a gun to your head, but you're afraid to fly. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. It makes no sense at all. Anxiety and depression, and then when you medicate them and then you're self-medicating them, it turns into a gigantic mess.
So well, how are you so in good shape now?
I found an amazing girl.
Yeah.
Who
Who is this?
You're not talking about your wife, are you? He's got a girl on the side, I think is what he's trying to say. Yeah. But all right, let me get to that part of your life.
Okay.
Right. So you get in a band, and the band takes off, which is like $1 million to one shot.
Right.
And you're the bass player.
Right.
And do you write most of the songs?
I write the words. Yeah,
oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, because the lead singer and stuff, like, you're sort of the focal point of the band, and yet you're the bass player. And that was my point yesterday about bass players.
Never are they the focal point.
Well, I was talking about how John Entwistle of The Who and how, who was the other example? Bill Wyman of the Stones. Like, those guys never put out any effort. Like, yeah, they're great bass players, but they they just stand there like a wall. Like, you move around on stage and stuff, and you try to be part of it, right? And be part of the band.
I want to entertain and be, you know, we're 4 best friends, and we've always been, you know, kind of a unit, and I don't know. I have a big mouth, and I run around a lot, and so people tend to focus on me, and Patrick's a shyer guy, you know. Right. And so. But
you're the one who all the chicks dig, right? I mean, because you get the hair and the whole thing going, right?
I think it used to be that way. Now that I'm like, I got the, you know, I got the chain on my finger. I'm not sure if that's true or not anymore.
So how old were you when you started to get famous?
I was around 22, 23.
And you dated a couple of hot chicks. The one you dated that I really liked, this is before your wife. We'll get to your wife in a minute. That Michelle Trachtenburg from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'd like to pork her. Oh. For lack of a better word. I really would. I find her very, very unique, if you know what I'm saying.
She's a really sweet girl.
Did you only date famous chicks? Was that your thing?